In 1945, after a 4-year stint in the Navy, Hubbard became involved in ritual magic with a protege of British Satanist Aleister Crowley.
They start performing ceremonies to find a woman who'll be willing to be the mother of an incarnation of the Antichrist, Babylon. Sexual ceremonies were performed between Parsons and Cameron, with Hubbard watching and telling them what to do and observing things on the astral plane. And this was meant to, she would become pregnant and they would control this elemental destructive force. I can't emphasize this too much. Hubbard was trying to incarnate pure evil so that he could control it to his own ends.
But the church insists that Hubbard's participation in the alleged rituals was part of a government mission.
We know about L. Ron Hubbard. He was sent in by one of the American security forces with the brief to shut the thing down, which effectively he did.
Government agent or not, Hubbard was destined to become the pop therapist of his era. In 1950, at the age of 39, he wrote an essay in astounding science fiction, detailing discoveries he made about the human mind in a science he called Dianetics. The essay became the foundation for Dianetics, the modern science of mental health.
Dianetics through mind. And this book, that's the background of all of this. That's what started all the trouble.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes.
The world into which Dianetics was released in May of 1950 was overall a world of conformity. You had soldiers returning to the United States and they were effectively told this: you get yourself a good job, you get yourself a tract home, and you live a conformed life. And if you're lucky, you will get yourself a swimming pool after, of course, you've dug your bomb shelter. You will have children, and they will in turn will have grandchildren, and then you will die and you will become nothing. All of a sudden, here comes Dianetics. And Dianetics is saying, wait a minute, what if you can really rise above the state of a human being into something more special, into what ultimately became a clear?
Hubbard claimed to have uncovered the cure of virtually every ailment known to man, and professed to have healed himself from partial blindness caused by an alleged war injury. Hubbard promised his book could work wonders on anyone who tried it.
He said that he could take anybody who was not brain damaged, and in less than 1,000 hours of therapy, which could be done by somebody completely untrained other than having read the book, you could take this person to a state called clear.
Hubbard claimed that all illnesses were psychosomatic and could be cured by eliminating painful past experiences from the brain.
The brain is a sort of switchboard.
And engrams is mental image pictures that consist of pain, whether it's mental or physical pain. It's there. We have two minds. We have the analytical mind that doesn't make mistakes at all. We have the reactive mind. That's the culprit.
Hubbard said the troubling reactive mind could be forever discarded through auditing. During an auditing session, one confesses his innermost thoughts to another, all the while monitored by an electrometer, a tool similar to a lie detector. Auditing, said Hubbard, allowed one to relieve his mind from troubling past life traumas. Hubbard was eager to share Dianetics with prominent mental health experts.
He said, here, you take it, use it, help people with it. They rejected it. They were afraid of it.
But the book was an instant bestseller.
And we expected this to sell about 6,000 copies, and this textbook was published. And it hit the top of the bestseller list of the New York Times, and it just stayed there month in, month out.
Hubbard's open contempt for the field of psychiatry and the popular theories of Sigmund Freud also caused a ripple.
Is this a form of psychoanalysis?
No, psychoanalysis, they lay back. Don't associate Scientology with such people. That's terrible. That's bad manners, you know. I mean, that business about sex and all that sort of thing. That's for the neurotic or the person who is insane or something like that. That has nothing to do with Scientology.
The psychiatric institutions and prominent psychiatrists kept attacking Dianetics. It became clear that what they were engaged in had nothing to do with helping anybody. It had nothing to do with making someone more capable, of making someone happier.
Electroshock therapy may be recommended for other disorders.
It only had to do with keeping them quiet, giving them drugs, performing electric shock treatments on them.
Hydrotherapy is useful in calming disturbed patients.
Those sort of things are barbarities. And I think that Mr. Hubbard was one of the first people that stood up and said, wait a minute, this is wrong, something needs to be done about it. We're going to take responsibility for making sure that people are not being turned into vegetables at the hands of psychiatry.
Glowing testimonies to Hubbard's technology led to the creation of the Hubbard Association of Scientologists. Based in Hollywood, the organization taught Hubbard's courses to those willing to pay the $25 an hour for the therapy. The Food and Drug Administration was suspicious. The FDA, which believed Hubbard was making medical claims for the E-meter, paid a visit to the D.C. organization in 1963.
They hired a bunch of longshoremen, sent them into the church in Washington, and cleaned the place out. They took the books, they took the E-meters, they took the vitamins, they took everything out.
Hubbard, furious, was convinced that psychiatry professionals had tainted the U.S. government against him.
When L. Ron Hubbard started Scientology and created Scientology in the 50s, he did it at the height of McCarthyism. And he came across with new ideas and a whole new way of looking at things in a new perspective. And J. Edgar Hoover at the time wasn't exactly fond of new ideas. And the whole approach of the United States government was to be suspicious of new leaders who were coming at the time. Martin Luther King was a great target of the FBI. L. Ron Hubbard was a target of the FBI.
While Hubbard distrusted the government, he viewed psychiatry, a profession that also treated the human mind, as the #1 enemy of Scientology.
It was part of the sort of lore that you learned when you went into the organization. Scientology has enemies. Some of them you will need to deal with very firmly.
The enemy to Scientology is anybody that questions Scientology, anybody that opposes it, anybody that challenges it, anybody that in the Scientology language is counter-intentional.
It was Hubbard's belief in the existence of a global conspiracy against Scientology that would define him and his church.
L. Ron said that you have to fight back against your oppressor. If you don't, he will gain strength and more strength and more strength and wipe you out.
When we return, L. Ron Hubbard feels the heat of the IRS and takes to the sea.